billions of views, millions of dollars, and a generation of children who never got to choose whether they wanted to be famous. Right now, there's a multi-billion-dollar industry built on the labor of kids, and for years, there were virtually no rules protecting them. Today, we're looking at the real cost of YouTube child stardom, from the subtle erosion of privacy to cases of outright abuse. This isn't just about a few bad parents. It's about a system that turned childhood into content, and only now is anyone trying to stop it. Let's start with the channels that seem harmless on the surface, the ones that made us ask, wait, is this still just a kid having fun? Number 11. Ryan Kaji, The Unboxing Empire. Ryan Kaji was 3 years old when his parents uploaded his first toy review. Ryan's Toys Review was a simple concept. Watch a kid open toys and play with them. But simple doesn't mean small. By elementary school, Ryan was reportedly earning over $25 million annually, making him one of the highest paid YouTubers on earth. Here's where it gets complicated. What started as a few videos a week became a daily content machine. Scripted skits, brand partnerships, merchandise deals, an entire media empire rebranded as Ryan's World. His playroom transformed into a production studio, complete with crew, lighting, and shooting schedules. Critics began asking an uncomfortable question. At what point does a child's play stop being play and start being labor? When every toy unboxing is filmed, edited, and monetized? When your childhood becomes the family business, where's the line? For Ryan, that line disappeared entirely, and he's far from alone. Number 10. Like Nastya, growing up in public. Anastasia Radzinskaya, known globally as Nastya, has hundreds of millions of subscribers across channels translated into multiple languages. What began as her parents documenting her development after a cerebral palsy diagnosis evolved into a content empire spanning skits, songs, and daily vlogs. The trade-off? Complete exposure, playdates, health updates, personal moments, all broadcast to a global audience. Her family now describes filming as a weekend job scheduled around school and therapy, maintaining what they call boundaries. But here's the reality. Nastya's entire identity was shaped in the public eye before she could comprehend what that meant. There's no awkward phase hidden away, no embarrassing moments left in the past, no chance to simply be a kid without millions watching. Privacy, that fundamental part of childhood where you figure out who you are away from judgment, was the price of admission. Number 9. Vlad and Nikki, The Scripted Childhood. Brothers Vlad and Nikki Vashkatov built their empire on bright, colorful, scripted adventures that have racked up billions of views. Preschoolers everywhere recognize their toy-filled fantasy world, but that world required something from them, their spontaneity. Their daily routines became content opportunities. Their playtime became performances, choreographed and optimized for the algorithm. Every adventure designed not for their enjoyment first, but for maximum engagement from an audience of millions they'll never meet. This model, turning authentic play into manufactured content, became the industry standard, and it raises a fundamental question that echoes through every story we're about to tell. When a child's every move is filmed, edited, and optimized for clicks, are they still playing, or are they working a job they're too young to understand they have? These channels didn't exist in a vacuum. They thrived because YouTube built a system that rewarded them, and that system had a dark secret: the COPPA violation. For years, YouTube's business model for kid content relied on collecting user data to serve targeted advertisements. There was just one problem. Doing that with children under 13 without parental consent is illegal under the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act. YouTube knew. Internal communications later revealed that employees understood the platform was filled with channels targeting young children, but the company continued profiting from that data anyway. In 2019, the Federal Trade Commission hit YouTube with a historic $170 million fine, the largest COPPA penalty ever imposed. The platform was forced to make changes. Now, creators must label videos as made for kids, which disables personalized ads and comments. But here's the catch. The entire system relies on creators self-reporting honestly. There's minimal enforcement, and critics argue it's a band-aid solution that lets countless channels slip through the cracks. YouTube YouTube was forced to admit it had failed to protect children, but the fix barely scratched the surface of the problem. Because data collection was just one issue, the platform did nothing to address how many hours these kids were working, whether they were being compensated fairly, or if they had any say in their own exploitation. Number 8. FGTV, the house that's always recording. For family channels like FGTV, Family Gaming Team's extraordinarily entertaining videos, home is the set. Parents Duddy and Moomy built a massive following through high-energy gaming videos, challenges, and vlogs. For their children, this meant something crucial was missing: an off switch. Every room was a potential scene. Every family dinner could become content. There was no clear boundary between life and work, between private moments and public performance. While the COPA settlement addressed data collection, it did nothing about workload, nothing about the psychological impact of growing up without privacy in your own home. The pressure became real enough that in 2023, several family members, including one of their children, took breaks from the channel, citing the immense stress of their online lives. When your home is your workplace and you're a minor, you can't exactly quit. You can't even clock out. Losing your privacy is one thing, but for some children on YouTube, what happened behind those cameras was far more sinister. Number 7. Ruby Franke's 8 Passengers, Abuse as Content. For years, Ruby Franke's 8 Passengers channel looked like typical family vlogging content. She shared parenting advice with millions of subscribers, documenting life with her 6 children. Her approach was notoriously strict. Viewers often commented that her punishments seemed harsh, but no one was prepared for what was really happening. In August 2023, Franke's 12-year-old son escaped through a window at the home of her business partner, Jody Hildebrandt. He ran to a neighbor, emaciated, with open wounds and duct tape around his ankles. The investigation revealed systematic abuse. Children denied food, water, and beds, forced into grueling manual labor in summer heat. Both Franke and Hildebrandt pleaded guilty to 4 counts of aggravated child abuse. In February 2024, they were each sentenced to 4 consecutive prison terms of 1 to 15 years. Prosecutors described the conditions as not a home, but as concentration camp-like. And here's what makes this story particularly disturbing in the context of YouTube. This abuse was happening while the family was being monetized. The platform that profited from their content had no systems in place to detect or prevent what was unfolding. The audience that watched their videos had no way to intervene. The children. Number 6. Daddy05, Monetizing Child Suffering. Before Ruby Franke shocked the world, there was Daddy05. Michael and Heather Martin built their channel around pranks on their 5 children, but calling them pranks is generous. The videos showed parents screaming at kids until they cried, destroying their belongings, blaming them for things they didn't do. One son, Cody, was targeted repeatedly. The parents framed it as entertainment, as edgy shock content. What viewers saw was emotional and psychological abuse, filmed and uploaded for profit. The backlash was immediate and intense. A police investigation followed. In 2017, the Martins lost custody of 2 children who were returned to their biological mother. The parents entered an Alford plea to child neglect charges, receiving probation while avoiding admission of guilt. Daddy05 proved something terrifying. You could monetize a child's suffering, and YouTube's systems wouldn't stop you. The algorithm didn't distinguish between entertainment and exploitation. It just counted views. Not all damage leaves physical marks. The psychological toll of growing up on camera often doesn't show up until years later. The cost you can't see. Psychologists have identified concerning patterns among child influencers. Many experience what's called parentification, being forced into adult roles to meet their parents' emotional or financial needs. For kidfluencers, influencers, this might mean becoming the family's primary income source before you're old enough to understand what that means. The research is sobering. Chronic stress, lack of control over your own life, and the pressure to maintain a public persona during critical developmental years are linked to anxiety, depression, and identity issues. Many child influencers report that their sense of self became dangerously entangled with their online brand. They're left asking a haunting question: who am I when the camera is off? Add to this the constant exposure to cyberbullying and online hate, which these kids face before they've developed the emotional tools to process it, and you have a recipe for long-term psychological harm. Every video's comment section becomes a referendum on their worth. Every dip in views feels like personal failure. And unlike child actors, who at least have clear boundaries between themselves and their characters, child influencers are selling themselves, their real lives, real homes, real identities. When that's the product, there's nowhere to hide. Number 5. Jojo Siwa, the gilded cage of branding. Jojo Siwa's story illustrates this perfectly. After appearing on Dance Moms, she was packaged by Nickelodeon into a global phenomenon. Signature bows, neon colors, relentless positivity. At an age when most kids are navigating middle school drama, Jojo was managing a merchandise empire, concert tours, and constant public scrutiny. Her brand was so powerful, it became a prison. When she tried to mature and evolve, the backlash was brutal. Her 2024 rebrand with the song Karma was met with widespread mockery. Critics called it a desperate, inauthentic attempt to appear edgy. The situation was further complicated by allegations that she created a harsh environment on her reality show Dance Pop Revolution, where young dancers reportedly endured grueling conditions. The girl who'd been pressured and packaged as a child was now accused of perpetuating similar dynamics with the next generation. JoJo's journey is a cautionary tale. When a child's identity becomes a brand before they've figured out who they actually are, breaking free from that brand means reconstructing yourself in front of millions, and the internet rarely forgives anyone for changing. Number 4. EvanTube HD, when hobbies become obligations. Evan Mona started EvanTube HD doing something genuinely fun, making stop-motion videos with toys alongside his dad. It was a hobby, a bonding activity, but hobbies don't usually generate millions of dollars. What began as creative play evolved into a sophisticated business. Toy reviews, science experiments, sponsored content, all optimized for the algorithm, all scheduled and produced with professional precision. Evan's family earned praise for their production quality, but that quality came at a cost. Every new toy wasn't just a toy, it was potential content. Every activity was evaluated through the lens of views and engagement. The simple joy of play, of doing something purely because it's fun with no other purpose, was gradually replaced by the demands of content creation. Evan's story is perhaps the most subtle on this list, but that's what makes it important. You don't need overt abuse for childhood to be compromised. Sometimes it's just the slow transformation of play into work, of spontaneity into obligation, of childhood into a career you never chose. Here's what makes all of this possible. For years, YouTube was a legal void when it came to child protection, the laws that didn't exist. In Hollywood, child actors have protections that date back decades. The Coogan Act, named after 1920s child star Jackie Coogan, whose parents spent his entire fortune, requires that 15% of a child performer's earnings be placed in a blocked trust account. Child actors have regulated work hours. They're guaranteed access to education. They have union protections. YouTube Kids had none of this. No limits on filming hours, no automatic financial protections, no requirement that any of their earnings be saved for them. Parents had complete control, and the platform took no responsibility. A multi-billion-dollar industry was built on children's labor with zero safeguards, because technically these kids weren't working, they were just living their lives while cameras happened to be rolling. Number 3. Kids Diana Show. Fame before understanding. Ava Diana Kadisiuk became one of the most watched people on YouTube before she started elementary school. Her imaginative play videos and toy unboxings translated into numerous languages made her an international celebrity. Like Nastya, Diana's fame happened before she could possibly comprehend what it meant. She couldn't consent to having her entire childhood broadcast to billions because she was too young to understand concepts like digital permanence, global fame, or the loss of privacy. This raises the fundamental ethical question at the heart of this entire industry. Can a toddler consent to being a public figure? Can a 5-year-old understand what it means to have their most vulnerable moments preserved forever online? Can any child truly agree to having their identity commodified before they've had a chance to figure out who they are? The answer is obviously no, but that didn't stop anyone because there were no laws saying they had to. Number 2. Karina Kurzawa, feeding the algorithm. Karina Kurzawa, known as Gamer Girl, found success with gaming content, primarily Roblox and Minecraft videos. She and her brother became a powerhouse in the kid gaming space, but success on YouTube means feeding an insatiable algorithm that rewards constant uploads. For kid creators, this often translates to grueling schedules that prioritize views over education, hobbies, or rest. The networks that manage child influencers have been known to push for multiple uploads per week just to maintain relevance. Play becomes dictated by trending topics rather than genuine interest. The pressure is relentless. A child's sense of self-worth becomes tied to view counts. Their value feels measured by subscriber growth. They're in a constant race for relevance, where falling behind means not just losing a job, but losing your identity and your family's income. And unlike adult creators who choose this pressure, these kids inherited it, often before they were old enough to have a choice. Number 1. The system itself, the fight for protection. When you step back and look at the big picture, the greatest threat to these childhoods wasn't any individual bad actor. It was the system that enabled all of this. For over a decade, a multi-billion-dollar industry was built on children's labor without any of the protections afforded to child actors, models, or performers in any other medium. YouTube claimed it was just a platform, not an employer. Parents claimed they were just documenting family life, not running a business. And children had no voice in any of it. But that's finally starting to change, thanks to former child stars speaking out and growing public awareness of the costs we've outlined today. Illinois breaks new ground. In 2023, Illinois became the first state to pass legislation specifically protecting child influencers. The law, which took effect in 2024, requires parents to set aside a percentage of earnings in a trust fund for any child under 16 who appears in at least 30% of monetized content. If parents fail to do this, the child can sue when they turn 18. It's a landmark law, a modern Coogan Act for the digital age. It finally recognizes that these children are workers who deserve protection, and that the money generated from their childhood belongs, at least in part, to them. Other states are now considering similar legislation. Washington, California, and Minnesota all have bills in progress. The momentum is building, but laws are only part of the solution. The culture needs to change too, and that's where we, the viewers, come in. From the subtle pressure of daily vlogs to the horror of documented abuse, YouTube child stardom is a minefield. It's an industry where play became labor, privacy became product, and children's identities were turned into brands before they had a chance to form naturally. The stories we've examined today aren't outliers. They're symptoms of a system that chose profit over protection for far too long. A system that treated children as content creators rather than children who needed protection. New laws offer hope, but the responsibility extends beyond lawmakers. The currency of this world is attention. Our attention. Every view, every like, every subscription sends a message about what we find acceptable. We can choose to be more critical about the content we consume. We can ask ourselves, is this child genuinely enjoying themselves, or are they performing? Does this family seem to have boundaries, or is everything monetized? Are we watching a childhood or a production? By supporting ethical creators and questioning exploitative content, we can help shift the culture from one that prioritizes views at any cost to one that actually protects the kids in front of the camera. Because here's the truth, no childhood should cost this this much. No amount of subscribers or ad revenue is worth what these kids have lost, and it's on all of us, platforms, parents, lawmakers, and viewers, to make sure the next generation of kids online gets to keep what they should never have had to give up in the first place, their childhood. This conversation is far from over, and I want to hear from you. Do you think there's an ethical way to include children in family vlogging? Where's the line between sharing family moments and exploitation? What responsibilities do platforms like YouTube have? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If you found this important, consider sharing it to help raise awareness. And if you want to see more content that looks at the real costs behind internet culture, hit subscribe. Thanks for watching.